Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, monsieur le greffier.
Monsieur le sénateur Routier,
Présent.
Monsieur le sénateur Osip, Monsieur le sénateur McLean,
Présent.
Monsieur le sénateur Gorse,
Présent.
Monsieur le sénateur Farnham,
Présent.
Monsieur le sénateur Balash,
Présent.
Monsieur le sénateur Green,
Présent.
Madame le sénateur Ferguson,
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre,
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent,
Présente.
Madame le connétable de Sainte-Marie, Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Martin,
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Sauveur, Monsieur le connétable de Griville,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean,
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité,
Présent.
Madame le député Martin, Monsieur le député Southern, Madame le député de Griville,
Présente.
Madame le député Hilton,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Lefondre,
Présent.
Madame le député de la Trinité,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Louis de Saint-Sauveur,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Tadier, Monsieur le député Noël,
Présent.
Madame le député de Saint-Jean,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Higgins,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Masson,
Présent.
Madame le député Pinel,
Présente.
Monsieur le député de Saint-Martin,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Bryans,
Présent.
Madame le député de Saint-Pierre,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Rondel,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Mezek, Monsieur le député Louis de Saint-Hélier,
Présent.
Monsieur le député de Saint-Ouen,
Présent.
Madame le député Dublin,
Présente.
Monsieur le député Labby,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Wickenden,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Bree,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Norton,
Présent.
Monsieur le député MacDonald,
Présent.
Monsieur le député de Sainte-Marie,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Truscott,
Présent.
Monsieur le député McClinton.
Présent.
Monsieur le greffier.
Prions Dieu. Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait le ciel et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton Saint-Nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et l'affection de tous ceux qui la composent, et de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toutes les délibérations étant accompagnées de ta bénédiction, réussissent au bien et au soulagement du peuple qu'il t'a plu de commettre à leur soin, quand nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé, Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a sonné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous entraîne pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car toi, la reine, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen. Monsieur le Sénateur Osip,
Sir, Senator Azif is out of the island on state's business.
Members agree, Senator, on state's business. Yes, on state's business.
Madame la Connétable de Sainte-Marie,
Sir, the Connétable had arranged to be out of the island before we agreed to sit this afternoon, and I ask that she be defo excuse. She will be back tomorrow, sir.
Members agree the Connétable may be defo excuse. Defo excuse.
Madame la Députée Martin,
Hello, my lad.
je jure que Madame la Députée Martin est tellement indisposée qu'elle ne peut pas assister à la tâche en exposer sa santé. Monsieur le député Southern, Monsieur le député Tadier, Monsieur le député Mezek. Les états sont
Les États sont constitués. I'm sure I don't need to remind members, but we are live web streaming for the first time. Members will make of that comment what they wish. There are a number of subordinate enactments under B. Also, a number of matters have been presented or laid as described in the consolidated order paper under section C, and members hopefully will have seen a supplement to that consolidated order paper which provides more. The following propositions, matters have been lodged under section D. The draft medium-term financial plan addition for 2017 to 2019, Fifth Amendment in the name of the Council of Ministers. The draft medium-term financial plan, Ninth Amendment lodged by Deputy Southern. There is also an amendment, 11th Amendment, lodged by Deputy Casey Lewis. A draft medium-term financial plan, 13th Amendment. Joel, thank you for your contribution to the coffers of the Assembly, Senator. But perhaps we shall wait until I'm no longer hearing myself externally. Thank you. The draft medium-term financial plan, 13th Amendment lodged by Senator Ossoff. Ministerial government referendum lodged by Deputy Martin. Draft limited liability partnerships Jersey law lodged by the Chief Minister. Antarctic Act 2013, extension of certain sections of Jersey by order, lodged by the Chief Minister. Public elections, polling cards and accessibility of polling stations, lodged by Deputy Mezek. There is one notification of withdrawal proposition in accordance with Standing Order 34L. The proposers have withdrawn the draft medium-term financial plan, 13th Amendment, which had been lodged by the Comitab of St Saviour. There are no matters under F, G, H, and come to questions, written questions. The Minister for Health and Social Services will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Lewis of St Helier regarding the treatment of stroke patients. The Minister for the Environment will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Masson regarding planning applications for urban developments. The Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Masson regarding the reduction of administrative burden on the island's businesses. The Chairman of the Privileges and Procedures Committee will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Masson regarding the pilot study to determine the feasibility of establishing a central electoral register. The Minister for Infrastructure will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Masson regarding improvement works at the junction of Les Varines and Longville Road. The Minister for Treasury and Resources will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Masson concerning potential revival of the Starter Home Deposit Loan Scheme. The Chairman of the Privileges and Procedures Committee will table an answer to a question asked by the Deputy of St John regarding the status of propositions approved by the States Assembly. The Minister for Treasury and Resources will table an answer to a question asked by the Deputy of St John regarding work on the income support and tax systems to provide incentives for people to return to work. The Minister for Treasury and Resources will table an answer to a question asked by the Deputy of St John regarding potential problems regarding the prior year basis of income tax payment for taxpayers nearing retirement. The Chief Minister will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Southern regarding pay provisions contained in the MTFP edition. The Minister for Social Security will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Southern regarding the potential impact of revised economic assumptions on the delivery of efficiency savings on the turn-to-work schemes. The Minister for Social Security will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Southern regarding the Department's use of agency workers. The Minister for Health and Social Services will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Southern regarding plans contained in the NTFP edition for departmental user pays charges. And the Minister for Treasury and Resources will table an answer to a question asked by Deputy Southern regarding the terminology of the proposed health charge. Come on to oral questions. Deputy Higgins two oral questions were deferred from the last sitting of the 13th of September due to illness, and therefore, in accordance with the standard procedure, have been added to the listing for this meeting. The oral question from Deputy Labby of St Helier to the Minister for External Relations, which was listed on the principal order paper, has been redirected and deferred at the Chief Minister's request and will appear on the order paper for the next meeting, and questions for this meeting have therefore been renumbered accordingly. Higgins, I invite you to ask your question.
Thank you, sir. In what ways is the Jersey taxation system fair and equitable? And what proposals, if any, does the Minister plan to bring to the Assembly to improve the current system, and when?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. And it's very nice to see Deputy Higgins back in the Assembly, having not been well at the last sitting. Sir, no tax system is perfect, and fairness is clearly subjective. However, the Jersey tax system does seek to protect those on the lowest incomes. The generous allowances and reliefs offered mean that the 30% of the population with the lowest income pay no income tax whatsoever. Those same people don't pay long-term care contributions and won't pay the proposed health charge. We also protect the lowest earners from the burden of GST on food through a combination of enhanced income support and the food cost bonus. The total tax burden falls significantly on highest earners. The top 1/5 of earners pay 70% of all personal income tax. This demonstrates how our tax system takes the least from those with the lowest income while taking the greatest contribution from those with the highest income. I hope the members can agree that this is the basis of a fair tax system. In terms of improving our tax system, there is a great deal of policy review work continuously being undertaken. As an example, we are fundamentally rewriting the tax compliance framework, the incentives, the sanctions, the penalties that affect taxpayers' behaviour and encourage full compliance. I announced in the last budget that members will start to see measures coming forward in future budgets. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, sir. When I asked this question, I had in mind the difference between tax paid by corporations and the tax paid by individuals. Now, we all know that since 010 came in, no companies are paying tax, with the exception of financial service firms at 10% and utilities at 20%. All other companies are not paying tax, and therefore the burden has been placed fully and squarely on personal income tax payers. Does the Minister think that's right? And if he, is that the correct position? And if he thinks it's wrong, when is he going to do something about it?
So the Deputy is effectively talking about our 010 tax regime, one that took a number of years to develop, and I might add in conjunction with other jurisdictions, the Crown dependencies all operate a similar tax system. It's a system that ensured that we maintained and sustained our essentially important financial services industry and what is now something like 13,000 jobs in the island. I believe it's the right system at the moment. There are no intentions to change the 010 structure as it exists. It has served the island well. No system, as I've said, is perfect, but we're in a competitive world and we need to bear that strongly in mind when considering how we apply tax.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Is it not the case that actually this Treasury Minister is intent on making our tax system more unfair because he intends to introduce stealth taxes at which the tax rate decreases the higher somebody's income is?
No, sir, that's completely untrue.
And so the Minister's just said that's not true. That is true. The health tax, the rate reduces the more you earn. So he can't stand up in this Assembly and say it's not true. That is perfectly true.
Is there a question? Then?
Yes, of course there is, sir. Why is the Treasury Minister seeking to increase taxes on low and middle earners when he promised at the last election he wouldn't do that? And why is he now standing in this Assembly and denying that the highest earners will not be asked to contribute proportionately the right amount?
Sir, in my opening remarks, I made it clear that the highest earners in our community make this most significant contribution in terms of taxation. That is the case, and that will remain the case. And broadly, the measures that the Deputy is talking about, independently assessed, are progressive.
Deputy Tadier.
And of course, to put it the other way around, the highest earners in our society get the biggest tax breaks on their disposable income. And under this Minister and under this Council of Ministers, he is actually maintaining their tax-free status. Let's talk about the 20% rate, which only applies to the highest earners. Everybody else in our island is going to be paying up to 21%.
Deputy, could you ask a question, please?
In fact, already is. So does the Minister agree that actually there is much scope for improvement when it comes to the Council of Ministers' own mantra of low, broad, simple and fair taxes, especially on that last point of fairness?
Again, sir, I made this point, I think, in my opening remarks. There are always opportunities to improve the taxation system. That's why there have been a number of reviews in recent years, 2010, 2012, 2014. And there are a number of policy reviews underway as we speak. That's quite understandable, because we're continually looking at ways in which we can improve the tax system, ensure proper compliance from it, and improve the yield, and that is as members would expect.
So on that basis, given the fact that there's so much goodwill towards doing these reviews which are underway already in some cases, will the Minister be supporting the proposition that's on the table from his colleague on the right to have a proper review of our tax system, a wholesale review, and if not, why not?
I don't know for 1 minute, sir, why the Deputy thinks that the reviews undertaken to date have not been, as he puts it, proper reviews. There have been some very good reviews undertaken, and the policy work that continues to be undertaken, much of it internally in the Taxes Department by an extremely professional, excellent team of individuals, does, when appropriate, call upon external advisors. I've had some very constructive discussions together with the Chief Minister during the course of the last week with Senator Ferguson and her proposition. Members will see, as a result, that there is a fairly detailed comments paper which has now come out. Hopefully members will have it with them. It was delayed. I apologise you didn't have it at the end of last week, but it did take additional time to work on. And in that you will see exactly what has been undertaken in terms of reviews in recent years, what is currently underway, and indeed what we intend to do over the coming months and years to further review and improve our tax system.
Deputy Southern.
Yes, sir. The Treasury Minister can't possibly be allowed to get away with what he just said. Does the Minister not accept that as part of the Council of Ministers, he is proposing a health charge which is capped at £164,000, and that above that cap, the tax is in fact regressive? The more you earn above the cap, the lower your effective rate of tax is. Does the Minister not agree that that indeed is an unfair tax system and is regressive?
Sir, the Deputy is perhaps seeking to have the debate that we're going to have on Deputy Mezak's amendment in the next few days. And I'm sure that all the arguments will be presented at that particular point. As I've said, independently, the health charge has been assessed, and as such, it's broadly progressive. The point that the Deputy makes over a cap level, yes, of course, that is going to have a different impact. But then again, it follows the contributory system that operates within the social security system. It's the same system that was used for long-term care. And although the Council of Ministers recognises that the cap itself needs to be reviewed, and indeed is each year anyway, it started at 150,000, it continues to be uprated from an RPI perspective, and further work is being undertaken by Social Security with regard to that cap, and I have no doubt that it will be amended in due course, and that's the proper way to do it, based on the evidence.
Does the Minister not accept that above the cap, his proposed tax, his Council of Ministers' proposed tax, is in fact regressive? The more you earn, the less effective rate of tax you pay.
If you wish to look at it, sir, in that isolated way, of course, that would be a correct interpretation, but you have to look at the broad package of measures that are being proposed, and therefore you get the context and the rationale behind the measures that are being presented.
Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. The marginal rate of tax is deemed as the state's attempt at a progressive tax system. It is criticised by many as being complex and difficult for people to understand. Does the Minister accept that this, and if so, what will he endeavour to do about this? Will he review it? This is a cumbersome system of calculating tax. Is he prepared to review this, and does he accept that it is such?
Sir, I certainly accept that at face value our marginal relief system is complex, and there are many people who don't properly understand it. In fact, I've discussed with the Treasurer and the Controller that we're going to undertake some more briefings for States members. Clearly the understanding amongst members will be far greater than the main population, but it is not as well understood as it should be. I will tell members, though, that it is the view of the relatively new Controller of Taxes that in fact our marginal relief system is, as he describes it, the jewel in Jersey's tax crown. If you look at the average effective rate of tax from those within the marginal relief area, it is 10%. It recognises the priorities of this Assembly and members of supporting families and consequently ensures that ultimately it is a relatively fair system in terms of outcomes, but not well understood, sadly.
So is the Minister therefore saying that somebody that earns over £130,000 and still not paying a full 20% in tax is acceptable?
It is impossible, sir, to look at individual cases. Yes, it can extend up to 120 or 130,000, depending on the circumstances of the individual. So if you have somebody, for example, with 4 or 5 children, a mortgage and so on, then of course it recognises the support to the family, and that's the fundamental building block of the system that was put in place in the first place. As I've said, the controller of taxes, with wide experience of not just our system now, but also elsewhere, in particular in the UK, thinks that broadly the marginal relief system is something that we should be proud of. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be reviewed, and I would say to members that with independent taxation on the horizon, the review or a review of the personal tax system will be necessary in order to further the independent taxation, which is targeted for 2020.
Final supplementary, Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. I believe the figure that was quoted by the Minister was that top 15% are paying most tax. The truth of the matter is the top 1% or 2% are paying less tax than the rest of us. And does the Minister not agree with that and think that it is totally inequitable?
Sorry, sir, there was a little bit of noise behind me. I didn't quite catch his question. If you wouldn't mind repeating it, it would be very helpful.
I said that the Minister in his answer, I believe, said the top 15% were the ones who are paying most of the tax. The truth of the matter is the top 1 and 2% are paying considerably less than most people. So the point is that there is a special rate for the very, very rich in this island, and there's another rate that penalises the people in the centre. Is that not correct, sir?
It's a very easy soundbite for the Deputy to use, but we've got to be realistic about this. There are some very high earners that if you wanted to apply the same rate of tax, and I'm talking in particular to high net worth individuals that we attract to this island, that we greatly value, and I might add, sir, I was at the Jersey Hospice Ball at the weekend. There were huge numbers of inward investors and high net worth individuals there, and more than £250,000 was raised for Jersey Hospice Care. These are the types of unseen benefits that many people perhaps don't appreciate, the value that these high earners bring, and why most jurisdictions around the world seek to attract such wealth creators. I don't think much more needs to be said about that particular area, sir. I think our taxation system generally seeks to attract inward investment and as such support the local economy, and that's what we should be seeking and aiming to do.
Very well, we come on to the second question the Deputy Southern will ask of the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. How many people aged over 65 depend upon a partial or full state's pension combined with income support for their total income? And how many such people in receipt of a partial or full state's pension combined with income support also have a private or occupational pension? And what measures, if any, is the Department considering in conjunction with the Treasury and Resources Department to increase the availability of occupational pensions?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Social Security Department publishes information on the number of pensioners receiving income support each year. Our annual report is due to be published next week, and this will show that 99% of low-income pensioner households have a pension. This amounts to 1,759 households at the end of 2015, out of a total of 1,776 income support households in this category. Members will be aware that a commitment was given in the medium-term financial plan, approved last year, that Social Security and Treasury and Resources would work together to promote financial independence in old age. In October, I will be issuing a consultation paper which considers how we provide for ourselves in retirement and how the Social Security Fund should adapt to an ageing population. One topic which will be discussed within this consultation is the availability of occupational pensions. This is the start of a major review of the social security scheme, and I hope that members will take the opportunity to participate in the consultation and engage in a broad discussion to identify the best option for Jersey. Thank you, sir.
The review of the contributory scheme, benefit scheme, is due to take place over a number of years, I believe. Is it, or is it not the case that the introduction of occupational pensions is a priority of this review and will be done in the early stages, or not?
So it's due to start next week, in as much of the Guernsey government have already agreed to introduce an occupational pension, not in force yet, but is agreed, and we have a meeting with Guernsey next week when we will discuss the possibilities.
A further supplementary, Deputy?
Thank you, sir.
This is the final supplementary I should make. Your final supplementary, as no one else has asked to answer questions.
I accept that, sir. I wasn't even arguing this time. Final supplementary. Yes. Can the Minister outline for members why she actually reduced the disregard on those without an occupational pension, those at the lowest pensions, and thus making them £9 a week worse off in the short term in her medium-term financial plan?
Thank you, sir. The Deputy alludes to the 23% disregard that was introduced in the MTFP agreed by the states last October. It was a change from previous pension disregards, in as much as it was a fixed sum of £55, and those pensioners already receiving that £55 then have an option to change to 23% of their income or the £55 disregard of their income. This is a way to encourage people to save for their own retirement, because in a lot of cases 23% of their income is considerably higher than the fixed sum of £55. And any pensioner now entering the scheme will have to have the 23%. The £55 is not an option any longer, apart from those who still have a pension already.
Very well, that brings us to question 3. The Deputy Doublé will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Following the recent fatal accident near Millennium Park, what measures will the Minister take across the island to improve road safety for children and other pedestrians, particularly around parks and schools?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Improving road safety for our children and other pedestrians, particularly around parks and schools, has been and will continue to be one of my key priorities. For example, during the past 2 years, my Assistant Minister and I have delivered significant road safety improvements around many of the island schools, such as St Mary's, St Lawrence, St Martin's, Balroyal and Greenville primary schools, as well as outside De La Salle and Beaulieu. Over the remaining life of this MTFP, naturally subject to members supporting the funding, as proposed later this week, I will continue to prioritise road safety for other children and other pedestrians, and this is some of our most important work. A full list of the schemes delivered during my term in office as the Minister for Infrastructure to date, and those actively being developed for implementation during the remainder of this MTFP, again subject to funding, will be distributed to members later this afternoon.
Before you, Senator, I think we had the benefit of hearing from your iPad once again. I wonder if it could be switched off. If you can't actually control it, if you could switch it off, that would be most helpful. Thank you very much. And thank you for your further contribution to the Assembly.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes, indeed.
I thank the Minister for his response, and I ask because this area is of increased public concern at the moment. It's always a concern in our parish of St Saviour, and I seem to have had an increase in constituents requesting that changes happen immediately, and I think people will understand that there are things planned, but is there any way the Minister can bring forwards some of these planned changes so that we can avoid any further fatalities? And also regarding the list of planned improvements, It would be lovely to have for members, but could the public see that list as well so that they can perhaps be reassured about some of the things that are being planned?
Minister.
So if I take the latter bit first, absolutely, sir. I intend to publish that list. But only earlier this morning, sir, I signed off the ministerial decision to build a pedestrian crossing at the junction of Chasse Brunette and Delarano Road, Deloraine Road, which will enable the children at Grainville and at FCJ to safely cross St Saviour's main road, sir.
Deputy Hill.
Thank you, sir. The Minister very kindly met with myself and the head of Hope Valley School earlier this year to discuss road safety improvements. I'm a little bit disappointed to see that the only road safety improvement that's actually taken place at the particular crossing opposite the pet cabin is a flashing school children sign, which from the west side of New St John's Road, if you come from the Queen's Road end, there's no indication whatsoever that children actually cross there. So I would like to ask the Minister if he could go back to his department and re-look at what they've actually put in place and improve on it, please. Thank you.
So Deputy Hilton actually is referring to a signage that has been there for a considerable amount of time. It's been there for several years. I've been advised by my officers that the new signage creating a temporary 20-mile-an-hour limit for that stretch of road whilst the schools are arriving in the morning and leaving in the afternoon. And that, I believe, is now on island and waiting to be put into place in the coming weeks, sir.
So supplementary. Could I request, when I've actually driven past the school at 8 a.m. in the morning, that sign, that existing sign, doesn't actually work. Could I ask that, or maybe it doesn't actually start working until much later. It actually needs to be working much earlier, if it does, than it is currently.
Deputy, what was the question there?
Minister, please go back to the department and ask them to look at that.
So I'll pass that information on to the school, because it's the school that controls the timings of the warning lights. And again, as I can repeat, new signage will be going in place there, and that will become a new 20-mile-an-hour zone during school pick-up and drop-off times.
Deputy Kevin Lewis.
Thank you, sir. When I was Minister at TTS, sir, I made the order to put the 20-mile-an-hour signs with flashing lights outside of the island's primary schools. Given the level of accidents that we're having in St Saviour and St Helier, Montmilley, Vic College, JCG and the surrounding area, does the Minister think there is a case for extending this to secondary schools? There is actually flashing lights outside Vic College, but that's just to warn that schools are coming out. There's not actually a 20-mile-an-hour zone. Thanks, sir.
So I'm actually surprised of Deputy Lewis that he doesn't know that exactly is one of the measures that we're going to be bringing in the road safety plan for all of the schools around St Saviour's, sir. We've had several meetings with the parish and parish officials over that, and that's in one of the phases that we're going to be delivering in the next 2 or 3 years, sir. So yes, that area all around the colleges will be, during school pick-up and drop-off time, will be a 20-mile-an-hour zone, sir.
Deputy Meze.
Thank you, sir. The example that's referred to by Deputy Doublé in this original question is in my constituency, and I know that the campaigners have been frustrated at how long they feel that it's taken to find a solution to this. Broadly speaking, does the Minister agree that actually it would be a good idea to devolve more powers to the parishes so that they can take on issues like this when people come to them and express their concerns, because they are closest to the local communities, know the views of people there who see these problems day to day and anticipate where there might be a dangerous circumstance? Would he support devolving more authority to the parishes so that they can deal with it and do things a bit more quickly?
Sir, while the police investigation is ongoing, I will not make any type of statement on the Tunnel Street incident other than to express my deepest condolences to the family of Clinton Pringle. I would remind members that, in fact, Tunnel Street is already a parish by-road.
Deputy Tadier.
So can the Minister state whether or not there is an ongoing review into island-wide speed limits? And if not, is that something that the Minister may be putting on the table shortly?
So it has actually been discussed over the last year or so. We've had two workshops with the 13 roads authorities and the 13 police forces in this island, sir, because the Department for Infrastructure only makes up one of those authorities. Yes, it has been discussed, and there's been general agreement to implement 20-mile-an-hour speed limits within village centres, and for the benefit of those in St Helier No. 1 district, that will actually include the Hovely Par area. So yes, we have been discussing that with the constables, with their roads committees and with their chef of the police, along with the State's Police, sir.
So, just to clarify, it can be confusing for your average member of the public if they want to make an inquiry or suggestion when it comes to road safety and speed limits, given the fact that there are, as the Minister says, 13 road committees effectively, if you like, in the island, not to mention the increasing number of quangos that have land in Jersey as well. If a member of the public does have a concern or a suggestion about a particular speed limit or road safety concern on a road, whom should they contact in the first instance, and can the Minister ensure that he will pass on those concerns?
Sir, that's a very good question from Deputy Talier, and I would encourage islanders to download the Love Jersey app, to take their phone and to take an image of the area that they're concerned about, because that will automatically be directed to the appropriate roads authority.
I have time for a final supplementary, Deputy Dubray.
I thank the Minister for his answers. Just to further press him on the planned improvements in St Saviour's and other improvements, is there any scope for the Minister to bring those forwards at all so that we can avoid further accidents? And also, could we have a timescale on when the 20-mile-an-hour limits outside the secondary schools will be in place, please?
Okay, so the department is spending some just short of £900,000 over the last this year, previous year, and for 17 and 18, particularly in St Saviour's. The 20-mile-an-hour speed limits are designed to be coming into place hopefully next year. By that I mean 2017. So we will see hopefully a significant improvement in the pick-up and drop-off times for road safety around all of the St Saviour's secondary schools.
Very well, we now come on to question 4 that the Deputy of Brewville will ask the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. When will grandfathered rights be given to European nationals living in the island, as the Chief Minister announced post-Brexit, and under what criteria?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. As I mentioned in my statement on the 28th of June, there will be no change in the formal relationship between Jersey and the EU as set out in Protocol 3 before the UK leaves the EU. And in the meantime, the rights of EU citizens to live and work in Jersey will be unaffected. Discussions on the terms of the UK's future immigration arrangements with the EU will not formally start until after the UK has triggered Article 50. We are, however, closely involved with the UK Government and in particular the Home Office on immigration and related matters such as the Common Travel Area. The Government's position, however, is clear. We want those who have contributed to Jersey and made Jersey their home to stay. The process will take some time. Immigration involves the UK Government and will be part of the discussions with the EU, but I want to reassure EU citizens in Jersey that they remain welcome here.
Supplementary, sir. Is the Chief Minister aware that since the Brexit vote and his announcement about grandfathered rights, there has been a marked increase in EU nationals arriving in the island, usually by boat, with their families and more than a weekend's worth of luggage?
So we know that we have ebbs and flows of EU nationals coming to our island during the course of the year. One would expect in the summer months for there to be increased levels. If those levels are out of kilter with previous times of previous years of a similar time, then we'll certainly review that. Of course, there was always, right across the British Isles, who would be affected potentially by the Brexit decision. This was always a possibility. But I shall check with the border control officials and with those who analyse such figures to give the Deputy some certainty.
Final supplementary, Deputy?
Yes, sir. Does the Chief Minister have a means of measuring the numbers, firstly, and does he not appreciate that the sooner we work to a given point in time, that will give people a certainty? And, well, he's shaking his head, but I believe it would give people certainty, so perhaps he'd like to comment on that.
So I think the Deputy knows that the UK must trigger Article 50 before they can start their negotiation. But the groups considering what it is that the United Kingdom may wish to negotiate for, one of them that we are involved with and our officials are involved with is this very issue. But there will be no certainty, I would suspect, until much further down this process. There are some challenges around the common travel area, for example. There are some challenges about whether the United Kingdom wants to be in the single market and whether there will be a quid pro quo for free movement of people. All of those issues will form part of the negotiation. We don't yet know even when the United Kingdom will trigger Article 50. So the certainty is that our relationship, nor has the United Kingdom's relationship, yet changed with the EU, and therefore EU officials can remain here on the same basis that as they did prior to the vote.
Sir,
I'm sorry, that was the final supplementary.
Well, yes, I know, but he didn't answer.
But it is still the final supplementary.
But he didn't answer the first part of my question. I asked if he has a means of measuring the numbers entering the island.
Well, it's the fact that then if the Chief Minister didn't answer it, he didn't answer it. His answers must be a matter for him, Deputy. We come to question 5. The Deputy Taddier will ask the Minister for Education. Deputy Taddier.
Thank you, sir. What increases, if any, have occurred in the last year for people wishing to resit GCSEs, and when did those increases take effect? And if there were such increases, what consultation and assessment, if any, was undertaken in respect of the potential impact of the uptake of resits?
Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you to the Deputy. This is a matter that's dealt with by the schools rather than the department, but I can report there has been no increase in resit charges to students in state schools over the past year. The fees for GCSE resits are set by the exam boards in the UK. Jersey has no input into or influence over the level of the charge, so it's not something we can consult on. If, however, the Deputy has a particular concern, I'd be happy to look into it for him.
Just for clarification, the Minister's mentioned in state schools, does that extend to Highlands College? Could he put on record whether or not the resit charges have increased or are about to increase for resits in GCSEs undertaken at Highlands College?
I'm sorry, sir, I can't actually pass that information on. I don't know that information, so I'll have a look at it and come back to the Deputy.
So can I just add for the record, it seems quite unsatisfactory the Minister
no, I mean,
doesn't have that
that's been a
information.
supplementary. You will have a final supplementary,
Okay.
Deputy.
But can I put it on record, sir? It doesn't seem a good use of State's time when it has been lodged for the requisite time from Thursday, and the Minister should have looked into all resits, including Highlands College, sir.
I'm sorry, due to that interjection, I'm afraid I missed the note of others who wish to ask a question. If anyone wishes to ask a question, Deputy St John, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm whether the funding for resits for GCSE are taking out of inflation budget of the schools, or whether they have a specific amount dedicated for that particular resit?
So once again, just to repeat, it's the schools that actually deal with that. They decide in their own budgets. And just to clarify the issue to some extent, so because it's worth amplifying where we are with GCSEs at the moment. The number of resits varies considerably depending on what type of GCSE is taken. If it's still an old-style modular course with lots of different elements marked throughout the 2 years, then there will be more resits or remarks. However, almost all GCSEs are now moving towards a new linear course with exams at the end of 2 years, so there will be fewer resits or remarks. And this year in particular, our students have taken a mixture. It's the changeover period from one system to another. In future, the number of resits and remarks will go down. But to answer the Deputy's question, it's the schools themselves that make the decision where the money comes from.
Final supplementary, Deputy Taddier.
Thank you, sir. The reason I asked this question is obviously based on information which I've been given to seek to clarify from the Minister. So I would ask the Minister if he can circulate any information that he finds, particularly about Highlands College and the resits, particularly those in the linear format that he talked about. We're looking at maths and English primarily, that people need to resit often for higher educational purposes or just for general chances for their CVs, etc. So I'd be grateful for the Minister to provide that in short order.
Thank you, sir, and of course I'm happy to do that. Pass it around the Assembly.
Very well, we come to question 6. The Deputy Mezek will ask for the Minister for Social Security. Deputy Mezek.
What support, if any, is available for islanders below the age of 25 who, because of suffering from a mental illness, are not able to work and have not been able to work since leaving education and have therefore not paid any social security contributions?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Prior to school leaving age, the family of a young person with a significant mental or physical illness or disability may be able to receive financial support through the Child Personal Care Benefit. This is available independently of household income. From school leaving age, a young person who qualifies for one of the higher levels of the Personal Care Award is entitled to make their own income support claim, again, independently of whether or not their parents are a low-income household. For those with less serious conditions, financial assistance through the Income Support Scheme is available, providing that they are a member of a low-income household. Alongside financial assistance, Back to Work offers specialist assistance to help people into work, where long-term illness or disability represents a more significant barrier to employment. We have dedicated specialists who have specific experience of working with mental health and other conditions and can support the management of such condition. We also work closely with colleagues in the Health Service and the Jersey Employment Trust to determine the best approach for the individual customer. Thank you, sir.
Very well. That brings us to question 7. The Deputy Labby will ask of the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Labby.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister receive regular information on how much income the Department's consultants make from private practice? And can the Minister advise who pays for the administrative support provided to those consultants, such as patient contact and the booking of clinics and theatres?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I do not receive information about our consultants' income from their independent private practice business. However, I do have access to the quantum of income that their private practice contributes to the running costs of the hospital. Our consultants' private practice, which is carried out on our premises, contributes £8 million per year to the service. This is through charges we applied to cover the costs of using our facilities, staff and equipment. Most private consultations occur within the consultants' private rooms, where administrative staff are used. The staff that are used are not HSSD employees. Where activity does take place on our property, with our staff, we recover all the costs associated with this activity.
Supplementary, sir. As the Minister will probably have guessed, my question was prompted by NHS England and their initiative to compel all NHS hospitals and trusts to publish in an earnings register the private earnings of their consultants. I just wondered if the Minister thought that there might be merit in that idea for Jersey.
So I am aware that the UK is exploring this option, but do not currently have any plans to implement this in Jersey. We would not expect others to declare their private income to their employer or to the public, but we do expect them to declare whether they have additional jobs or business interests.
Deputy Sutherland.
Thank you, sir. My understanding is that in the UK, private practice takes place in the practitioner's spare time, and that they are duty bound to offer their spare time in the first instance to the NHS trust for which they work. Is that the case in Jersey?
So what happens in Jersey is that all consultants are contracted for 40 hours. Many do much more than that for the public sector, sir. They do their own work in their private time, and as I say, they're contracted for 40 hours, they do 40 hours, and much, much more. You're much more likely to see a consultant at the weekend here than you would be in the NHS.
Deputy Mansell.
Thank you, sir. Of the charges that the Minister gave to the Assembly. Can he explain how often they are updated and renewed and when the last time that they were renewed?
I'm not too sure the last time they renewed, but it is a regular review. Just a matter of interest, sir, we are only under the law allowed to recover the costs. Treasury Minister is working on bringing legislation forward to enable us to make a surplus to that cost.
Final supplementary, Deputy. Very well. That brings us now to question 8. The Conitâr St Helier will ask of the Chief Minister. Conitâr.
Thank you, sir. What assessment, if any, will the Council of Ministers undertake of the report, The Environment in Figures, a report on the condition of Jersey's environment 2011 to 2015, R92 of 2016, and the Council's fulfilment of the environmental goals set out in the strategic plan? And what action, if any, will the Chief Minister take to ensure any improvements required are made in order to achieve those goals?
Chief Minister.
So I'd like to ask Senator Routier to answer this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Environment in Figures report is an important document looking back at trends in our environment. As the report says, we enjoy a high-quality environment, but we need to do more. This is partly why the strategic plan commits to developing a long-term vision to balance our environment, our community, and our economy. Indeed, the My Jersey survey, which we ran just before the summer recess, placed the environment at the top of people's priorities. People are reported how pleased they are with the condition of our environment. 4,000 people responded to the survey, and the Council of Ministers will be considering its results next week alongside the Environment in Figures report. This will help inform the final vision, which will include specific and achievable goals, including for our environment.
Supplementary, please, sir. The foreword to the report written by the Environment Minister says, and I quote, "It is a matter of concern that this report is not more positive." Will the Assistant Chief Minister undertake to come back to the Assembly with specific actions which will make sure that the report that is given next time is much more positive than could do better, which seems to be the tone of the present report?
Thank you, sir. I certainly share the Environment Minister's concerns about where we can do better, and certainly I'm very pleased that next week the Council of Ministers will be spending some considerable time looking at that report together with the findings of the My Jersey survey, and we will no doubt with the Environment Minister will be pressing us as a Council of Ministers to ensure that actions are taken.
Deputy Alabi. Deputy. You want final supplementary, Councillor?
Yes, indeed, I would, sir. When the strategic plan was first presented in draft form to the states, the Environment, Housing and Technical Services Scrutiny Panel, as it was then termed, spent a considerable amount of time working up amendments, a series of amendments which were successfully brought to the strategic plan. And I would simply ask the Assistant Chief Minister, was the scrutiny panel wasting its time, or is the fact that the environment was put up the priority list, particularly in the areas of economy, health and education, a matter that the Council of Ministers is going to take very seriously indeed?
Certainly from my point of view, and I know from many of the colleagues, in fact I'm sure across all the Council of Ministers, we're all very keen to put into action the words which are in various of the reports, the strategic plan, the Environment in Figures, and also the scrutiny plan, the scrutiny report, and all those documents will be of value to ensure that we will be working to a better outcome and resources being put to the environment.
We now come to question 9. That Deputy Higgins will ask the Chief Minister. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether the Business Tendency Survey has been discontinued, and if so, for what reasons this has been done, and whether the Fiscal Policy Panel agreed with the decision not to collect this economic data, and will he explain how equivalent economic data will be gathered?
Chief Minister.
Thank you. So the Business Tendency Survey is an important survey and should take place. I'm sure the Fiscal Policy Panel would concur. Nevertheless, we do need to reduce the cost of the public sector, and this can be difficult. We are working with the Chief Statistician on savings, including bringing public health statistics into the statistics unit and finding other efficiency savings wherever possible. As part of this, we do now intend to reduce the savings required for the statistics unit, as hopefully members will have seen our comment to the second MTFP amendment. This will enable the business tendency survey to be reinstated.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Can the Minister tell us why, other than cost, they decided to discontinue this particular survey? Because the business tendency survey filled an important gap in the data that was collected on the economy. We all know that we have insufficient data on the economy and to see how well government policies are working. Will the Minister explain why, other than cost?
So I think, as I said in answer to questions from Deputy Southern at the last state sitting, there was some confusion about what costs were going to be, what funds were going to be available, what savings was going to be requested of the Statistics Department, and how any redesign could be delivered. That confusion between the Independent Statistics Unit and officers in my department has now been clarified. Vacancies that were in place are in the process of being filled, and that's why I say that the business tendency survey will be reinstated.
Deputy Southern?
Yes, just for clarity's sake, could the Minister inform members that in fact what's taking place is that a post which was already lost by a departing statistician, moving to another department, will now be replaced as soon as possible, and that is likely to be in December, so that the Stats Department can eliminate the backlog, which they've already got in terms of publications, and get on with their main job.
So that is my understanding, although it's a moving situation as I sit here this afternoon in preparation for Deputy Southern's amendment tomorrow, but that is now my understanding.
Final supplementary, Deputy Higgins.
Yes, sir. Just reflecting on the answer the Chief Minister gave, did he or his department consult with the Fiscal Policy Panel before they took the step to do away with that survey?
So I didn't make the decision to do away with the survey, and I therefore did not consult the Fiscal Policy Panel.
Sir, could the Minister just elaborate and explain whether anybody spoke with the panel beforehand?
I think your original question was the Fiscal Policy Panel consulted? So, are you able to answer?
So I'm not aware that they were.
Very well, that brings us on to question 10. The Deputy Mezek will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy Mezek.
Given the conclusion of living on low income, that the decision to abolish the single parent component of income support was unsound, what measures, if any, has the Minister taken to improve the decision-making processes with which she is involved?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Scrutiny Panel has provided its opinion. Members will not be surprised if I state that, in my opinion, the decision was perfectly sound. As is usual practice, I will be making a full written response to the scrutiny review within 6 weeks of its publication. In this case, the response will be provided by the 19th of October. The lone parent component is included in legislation which was debated and approved in the States Assembly. Last year, I put forward an amendment to the legislation to change this aspect of income support. As is the right of any elected member, Deputy Mezek lodged an amendment to my proposals, and these were debated in October 2015. Following the debate, States members supported my proposition and the law was amended. The decision-making process is clear and democratic, and I have no plans to seek to change it. Thank you, sir.
So a supplementary question. Of course, the debate which took place in October last year occurred before the publication of the Income Distribution Survey, which showed that 54% of single-parent households live in relative low income. How can she possibly describe a decision-making process which ignores the fact that over half of these people were already living in relative low income and therefore couldn't be included in the decision to take away what is, for some of them, over £2,000 a year? How can she possibly describe that process as sound when she made that decision without the most important piece of information she would need before making it?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The timing of the MTFP debate last year and the timing of the release of the new evidence referred to by the Deputy of living on low income and the scrutiny report of that and the income distribution survey, the timings of these were completely out of my control. However, both present different types of evidence, some of which will undoubtedly shape future policy development. However, I can unequivocally say that neither of these would have affected my decision to propose a phased reduction in the extra amount paid to lone parents. I would have made the same case to this Assembly, and I am confident it would have been accepted.
Deputy Southern.
Does the Minister accept that the decision she made to reduce or eliminate the lone parent component was made on the basis of no evidence, but merely on the prejudice of some officers in her department? And will she, in the future, pay due attention to the results of the independently produced report on income distribution and actually reconsider her decision in the light of this fresh evidence?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. This measure does not unfairly target single parents. By 2018, all single parents receiving income support at that time will be in a comparable position to couples with children. All single parents will still receive an adult component to cover their personal living costs, a rental component to cover rent, a household component to cover household bills, and a child component to cover the costs of a child's living. They will also be able to claim help with childcare costs when they return to work and receive specialist support from the Back to Work team to get them back into the workforce.
Sir, the Minister, again, did not answer my question. The question was, will she pay careful attention to the new evidence produced in the income distribution survey and reconsider her decision?
So I think I said in my previous answer that both the income distribution survey and the living on low income will support future policy development, but there is no question of a change in the way that we've dealt with the lone parents.
Deputy Simon.
When making her decision to withdraw the single parent supplement, did the Minister go back to consider the principles of income support which were adopted by this Assembly in the early days of the income support scheme? And for what reason did the Minister reject the findings set out in those principles that single parents do have additional costs which should be covered by the income support scheme?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I think the Deputy is referring to the law of 2007 prior to the income support law of 2008 coming in. And that may have been considered necessary at that time. The evidence and the investigation and research that we've done at this time, considerably farther down the route, does not produce any evidence to say that it's more expensive for a lone parent than it is for a couple with children.
Supplementary, please, sir. The Minister refers to her evidence and research, and I should be grateful if she would provide the scrutiny panel and members with it, and I would ask that she does so. She has not previously done so on this subject.
So the Deputy, also Chairman of the Scrutiny Panel, has asked for evidence. This was all done in the department, who is without doubt the best place first to do this because we're dealing with these situations every day. And as a result of our change in the lone parent component, there have been 2 questions from the public, this was introduced in November. There have been 2 questions to the department from the public. One was merely a query, one was a complaint, and I personally, in the last 3 weeks, have had 1 email. So there is no evidence subsequent to the introduction of this change to say that it's proving a problem.
Deputy Tadier.
Does the Minister accept that it's completely inappropriate and misleading to make comparisons with parents who are in a joint relationship because, in fact, their potential for increasing their earning power is much greater than that of a single parent who is very limited when it comes to the use of their time to seek alternative employment and to increase their funds? And that's why, in particular, our scrutiny panel found that they've been targeted disproportionately. Remember, a group who were already in a bad position to start off with, being made even worse off by this minister's cuts. Does the minister accept that point?
No, sir, I don't accept the point because there's a huge amount of support given to lone parents. Our research showed that lone parents very rarely stay in that position. I think 20 months is the average in that position, and with 1 in 3 staying in that position for less than a year. And the emphasis on trying to find them suitable jobs is huge with the Back to Work team, and also childcare costs are covered to allow them to get back into the workplace.
So does the minister accept that it's completely irrelevant for how long a single parent remains a single parent? If one is on one's bones for 20 months or so, that is a significant period of time during which they absolutely need the correct level of income support claims to help them and their family in that situation. So will the minister agree that that is a completely spurious argument she's putting forward, irrespective of how long one remains a single parent? That could be for a matter of months or a matter of years. During that time, they should be adequately supported. Is that not correct?
So I've already outlined in a previous answer that the adult component, the rental component, the child component, the household bill component are all paid to a lone parent on full receipt of income support. So it's not as if they're on their bones, as the deputy decided or said. And the whole reason for the savings in the benefits in last year's MTFP was to support health and education. And already education are rolling out the pupil premium in schools, which will support a lot of these children.
Final supplementary, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. The Income Distribution Survey, of course, also pointed out the appalling rates we have of pensioners who live in relative low income in the island as well, another group which her department sought to cut support for. So my question is, does her department actually bother to do any investigation whatsoever to find out what she is doing to the poorest people in our society? And what will she say, inevitably, when the next income distribution survey comes out, that will show that the measures she has taken in office have made life even more difficult for the people in this island who are already the poorest and most vulnerable? What does she say to that?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I seem to keep answering the same question time and time again with a similar answer. There weren't cuts to pensioners, as the deputy refers to, and the lone parents on income support are very, very well supported with all the components I've referred to earlier, plus the childcare costs, plus support to get them back into work and give them financial independence.
So could I raise a point of order on that last question? I believe that the Minister has just misled the Assembly when she said that there were no cuts to support for pensioners. Her department did in fact reduce the disregard for income support for people who are pensioners, meaning there was a cut, and to say otherwise is simply to mislead the Assembly.
What is the point of order? Because
that she's misled the Assembly. She should withdraw that
isn't
comment,
the point
surely.
of order, Deputy. The point of order is something on which the Chair has to make a ruling, and the Chair obviously can't make a ruling on what you've said. I'm working on the assumption that you are suggesting that the Minister may have unintentionally misled the Assembly. But I don't think that's a point of order. I can't make a ruling upon it. That comes to question 11. The Deputy Southern will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. At last I've got a smile on my face. It's warmed me up a bit. Will the Chief Minister inform members whether the State's Employment Board has refused to accept arbitration to resolve the 2015-2016 pay dispute with the civil service representatives? And if so, explain why. And will he further state what action, if any, will be taken to ensure that a productive process for pay talks is put in place for 2017?
Thank you, sir. State's Employment Board officers met with Civil Service Union representatives at the Jersey Advisory and Conciliation Service as part of the pay negotiations for 2015-2016. The meeting at Jack's was part of the agreed dispute procedure, which is still in progress. During the meeting, the SEB were asked to consider binding arbitration as a possible outcome to the negotiations. Officers made it clear that giving that binding arbitration could reach an outcome outside the budgeted mandate for pay in 2015-16, it was not appropriate to consider, as the extra costs might need to be provided for by either a reduction in jobs or an impact on services, which was not an acceptable outcome. there is an agreed framework process for pay negotiations signed by all leading unions when they accepted the 2012 to 14 pay award, which included a 4% pay award for continuing involvement in workforce modernisation.
Yes, sir. The Minister states that SEB refused to accept binding arbitration, because it might exceed the limits they had been set. Is it not the Chief Minister's opinion that situation is likely to happen again should we accept the medium-term financial plan, which suggests a substantial reduction in the pay for newly qualified teachers? Will they not be faced with the same situation where this House possibly instructs them that there's a limit, there's £500,000 less for those workers, and we'll have exactly the same situation, a complete breakdown in the situation and an absence of proper negotiation?
I hope it's not, sir. There is pay restraint in the MTFP, and there are some changes to the way the workforce would be remunerated, but there is money set aside, and we will hope to deliver pay awards within those parameters, sir. I've got to say, of course, sir, there are a number of amendments that, if they were accepted, might lead to the outcome that the Deputy is suggesting.
Is your final supplementary, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. Is it not the case that rather than negotiate in good faith, the SEB is showing its true colours and insisting on forcing through agreements, well, they're not agreements, forcing through in the face of a lack of agreement, imposing pay restraint on various groups of workers in the island, public sector workers?
So there's no doubt that the parameter being set, and which was set, is challenging, but that's what members of this Assembly want us to do in order to ensure that the growth of the cost of government doesn't continue to increase. We had a briefing only at lunchtime from a scrutiny panel suggesting that we weren't controlling the growth in the cost of government enough, sir. But there is, as I said in my opening response, an agreed framework process, and I hope, sir, that will, during 2017, allow us to reach amicable agreement.
Well, that brings us to question 12 that the Deputy of Grouville will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Given the Chief Minister's announcement that the rights of the EU nationals currently resident in the island would be grandfathered, what reciprocal rights, if any, will the Chief Minister seek as a post-Brexit negotiations for Jersey residents, especially those with a stamp in their passports, denying them automatic right to work in the European Union?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. As I mentioned in my answer to the Deputy's earlier question, negotiations over the terms of the UK's future immigration arrangements with the EU will not formally start until after the UK has triggered Article 50. Again, as I said on the 28th of June, the overarching objective of the government for the forthcoming Brexit negotiations is to preserve the benefits that we currently enjoy under the arrangements with the EU. Freedom of movement falls away when the UK leaves the EU, and whatever arrangements that will have been negotiated for all Jersey citizens will come into effect. We will be seeking to ensure that those new arrangements are for the benefit of all Jersey citizens.
Supplementary, Deputy?
Yes, please, sir. Why can't Jersey, as a self-governing jurisdiction, or indeed collectively with the Crown dependencies, devise our own measures for free movement in the common travel area, and before Article 50 is invoked?
So we do already overlay our own controls. We often discuss whether those controls are suitable in this Assembly, and I said when I made a statement, I think at the last state sitting, sir, that I envisage that we will continue to lay over our own controls. But if we want to change the common travel area or our relationship with the common travel area, if we want to change our relationship with regard to free movement of people, these are things which would need to be negotiated. We are not in the EU. The UK is the sovereign state which is undertaking the negotiations. We find ourselves in the same position as the other Crown dependencies and the devolved administrations in this regard, but we are taking part in those groups which are considering what it is that the United Kingdom government will seek to negotiate. Of course, during that negotiation process, we will then, I imagine, be thinking about the controls that we would wish to overlay, which may need to change.
Deputy Tadier.
And so I suppose another way to phrase this question, which is slightly different to the first question that was asked, is can the Chief Minister ensure that those Jersey people with a stamp in their passport will have an equal right to go and pick potatoes and do hard manual labour in Eastern Europe for a minimum wage, and also have the right to live in substandard accommodation in those countries, continuing in the future, just as those Europeans have that right to when they come to Jersey, and also not be able to claim benefit for 5 years when Jersey people go and live in Europe? Can you guarantee that we
Deputy,
will
this is
also... Sorry, sir?
This is turning into a speech which is not within the ambit. Do you have a direct question for the...
I think that is the question, sir. We're talking about equality in terms of rights, sir. Will those rights afforded to those Europeans who come and enjoy such privileges in Jersey be afforded to those other Jersey citizens on those same conditions?
Chief Minister.
So the Deputy is trying to make a point, but I think he's pointing to history. Many industries which benefit from the free movement of people overlaid because of the common travel area have, over many years, improved the accommodation that they provide, improved the rights. We now have a minimum wage legislation as well. So I think the Deputy is pointing to history rather than current experience in that regard, albeit there are some improvements to be made, and I know that the Housing Minister is minded and is aware of those and is bringing forward improvements in that regard. The point, I think, of the Deputy's initial question, is that we will be seeking to get a fair and equal deal for all Jersey citizens.
Supplementary, Deputy?
So, does the Minister recognise that, of course, it's a delicate area in which to tread? If we look to the UK, we know that, for example, there isn't fairness when it comes to the rights of Jersey people to work in the UK, who actually have an absolute right to go and work, live and claim benefit in the UK, whereas UK residents who come to Jersey have to wait 5 years for their work qualifications, 10 years for residency rights, and unable to claim benefits for 5 years. And that these whole issues could actually be up for question when we're looking at the renegotiating a relationship either with the EU directly or with the UK, and that, of course, these negotiations are important but need to be handled very, very sensitively.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood what the question was, Deputy.
So, but I suspect the Chief Minister may have.
Well, I'm not sure that helps the Assembly.
So I recognise that these are controversial issues, which is why I made the point that I don't imagine we'll find ourselves in any situation other than a similar approach to the one that we have now, which is a renegotiated position that the United Kingdom government has delivered with an overlay of our own controls and legislation as well. We know that one of the renegotiated positions that the United Kingdom government made with Europe was around an emergency break on benefits to other EU citizens. They are delicate, they are difficult, but what we seek to deliver is a fair deal for the benefit of all Jersey citizens.
Final supplementary, Deputy Bureau?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it is indeed about rights and equal rights, and the point of my question was to have the Chief Minister's assurance that when he goes into negotiation, that we have his assurance that he will fight robustly for Jersey residents' rights, as we haven't enjoyed since 1973. Thank you, sir.
And that brings us to question 13, that the Connaught Harbour...
Would you like me to answer that?
I beg your pardon, Chief Minister.
So the Deputy makes a very good point, and the answer is yes, we will. It's critically important. We're working on the premise, of course, that without any renegotiation in this particular area, all United Kingdom citizens would have the equivalent stamp in their passport that some Jersey citizens now have. I don't think that that would be an acceptable position for the United Kingdom government, and it certainly can't be an acceptable position for Jersey government going forward.
Now we come on to question 13 that the Connaught Harbour St Helier will ask of the Minister for the Environment.
Thank you, sir. Given the Minister's statement in the report, The Environment in Figures, a report on the condition of Jersey's environment 2011 to 2015, that, quote, it is a matter of concern that this report is not more positive, end quote. What steps, if any, will the Minister take to improve levels of environmental protection and enhancement in the remaining period of this Council of Ministers?
Minister.
Sir, the Environment in Figures report is an excellent document that looks back at trends in our environment. As the report says, we all enjoy a high-quality environment, but progress in some areas has been slower than I would like, and we need to do more, hence my concern. The strategic plan committed us to developing a long-term vision for our environment, our community and our economy, and earlier this year, My Jersey survey was undertaken, which will put, I'm informed, the environment firmly at the top of people's priorities. The Council of Ministers, as we've already been told this afternoon, will shortly review both that survey and the Environment in Figures report. But to answer the Constable's specific and, I hope, achievable environmental goals, I would just say this. I am undertaking to bring forward a new water plan to address nitrate and pesticide levels. I am I'm also doing an ongoing piece of work on the implementation of the energy plan to reduce carbon emissions. I'm updating the strategy to protect our biodiversity, and I'm also coordinating the work, I hope, on a climate change adaptation plan. So I look forward to member support in these and other environmental initiatives I might bring in the rest of this session.
Thank you, sir. The Minister singles out in his foreword the failure of the states to tackle congestion, which was supposed to be reduced by 15% by last year and has achieved 1.6% reduction. In the summary of the priorities for the next period, the Minister states that he wants to see continued progress towards the 15% reduction in peak time congestion. So will the Minister work with his fellow Minister at Department for Infrastructure to take some really important steps to make this goal achievable? Because clearly nothing is happening at the moment, and we're going to have another failure in 5 years unless some action is taken.
Minister.
Sir, I don't need to start working with the Minister for Infrastructure because I already am working with him, and I work with him frequently. I also work with the Constable of St Helier on the future St Helier project, and we tackle these issues on a regular basis. The Sustainable Transport Policy certainly set out a number of goals. It's unfortunate that in the past the States Assembly has chosen to remove some of the teeth that were in that policy, which would have given us more opportunity to reduce the congestion charges. I would say to the Constable, I feel that we're slowly getting there. Certainly we have a bus service which is much improved. It's better than it ever has been, with more routes and more buses. And I am as bad as anybody. I'm a Jerseyman who loves to drive his car, and it takes a lot to persuade me out of it. But I am persuaded, and I hope others will be too. And I look forward to working with the Constable and the Minister for Infrastructure in the coming couple of years to try our very, very best to increase the use of public transport in order to reduce congestion.
Deputy Tadier.
So is the Department for Environment underfunded in the opinion of the Minister?
If the Deputy, sir, wanted to use other words and say, would the Minister like more money to run his department and initiate new policies, the answer would certainly be yes. and any minister would be the same. We all have a job to do, and we all want to do as much and as best we possibly can, and the more money we have, the easier that becomes. But I have to be realistic, sir. The Council of Ministers have prioritised health and education and future St Helier, and those are all very, very important subjects, as well as developing the economy. I do what I can. I have money and I use it as the best of my ability. But to the answer to the Deputy, would I like more? Yes, we'd all like more, but we have to be realistic. We do the best we can with the resources available.
So I'm sure that the Minister, like me and many others, believes that the environment is of utmost importance, not simply locally to us, but obviously the global challenges that we face as a world together, and also that the environment actually covers the many current aims that the Council of Ministers have to do with education and health, which are all affected one way or the other by the maintenance of a healthy and sustainable environment. With that said, sir, will the Minister state what stance he took against fighting the cuts in his own department, a department which I believe is already underfunded and many others believe to be the case? Did he actually stand up to the cuts that were proposed, or did he simply say, yes, I will accept the cuts to be made?
So the government of this island has made a commitment to reduce where it can its expenditure. The public of the island want us to do that. It's made very clear day after day that people want us to spend less in order to take less from them. When the Council of Ministers spent the 8 or 9 months already we've had this year trying to work out the best way forward, we all set ourselves targets, and I, like every other minister, went back to his ministry to see what could be achieved. And I have made a decision that we will reduce the amount of advice we give, become more regulatory. We looked at ways of reducing the expenditure, and we have come up with a way of meeting the targets that were set for everybody. I have to say, I think I've been extremely fortunate. I've had members of staff reaching retirement age, and I've managed to find ways of reducing my budget. I've met the targets that were set for me, and I feel that moving forward I will be able to continue to deliver the service, but in a more efficient way in the future.
Deputy Andrew Lewis.
So the Minister will know that, of course, one of the ways of reducing congestion is encouraging more cycling. Is the Minister prepared to somewhat throw the rulebook out the window regards to planning and really come up with some blue sky thinking as to how cycle tracks can be put in place, such as allowing or insisting that all landowners adjacent to main roads have to provide or allowed to be provided within their fields cycle paths, so we can actually create a proper network? Would the Minister consider such radical thinking?
I would venture to suggest, sir, that if I was a minister who decided to throw the rulebook as regards planning out of the window, I wouldn't be the Minister for Planning for very long. But I take on board what the Deputy says. I can't see that myself or my department being as creative as he suggests with forcing people to put cycle paths in their fields. But certainly I look forward to working, as I've said, with the Minister for Infrastructure and the Constable of St Helier, how we can be more creative in the way that cyclists are allowed to use St Helier itself. And certainly when you travel abroad and we travel into the UK, you see roads now where cyclists are allowed to travel in both directions, where cars may be only allowed to travel in one. And that's the sort of blue sky thinking and initiative that I look forward to bringing to this House in the near future.
Minister, he is talking there about, so the Minister is talking there about urban cycling, but the Constable was talking about commuter traffic congesting St Helier. So how does he expect to resolve the issue of cars coming into St Helier if one of the options is cycling, but there are very few cycle tracks to use to actually get into St Helier? So can he think of some blue sky thinking to make that happen quicker?
I take on board the Deputy's comments, sir. It is a challenge for cyclists coming in and out of St Helier from the rural areas. Our main roads are not great, they're not wide, and they do handle a large amount of traffic. Cycling is not the easiest when you have cars, lorries travelling past you at high speeds, and I take his point on board about providing cycleways. It may be about using lane networks, it may be about where the opportunity arises using parts of fields, but it's certainly not something that I could advocate wholesale in the future.
Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. To what extent does the provision of a hopper bus service or its equivalent play a part in his thinking about congestion, particularly in the urban areas, especially St Helier?
So the hopper bus service is something which comes under the Minister for Infrastructure's portfolio, but certainly in my view, I know in discussions I've had with Liberty Bus in the past, they have ideas about buses crossing town as opposed to going around town at the end and the beginning of certain routes, and I would seek to talk to them again about hopper bus service to see what we can do. I think in the past, a hopper bus service, a standalone hopper bus service, has not been as profitable as it might have been, but there certainly are some scopes for a normal route being extended either at the beginning or at the end of that route to encompass a hopper bus type service.
Final supplementary comment, St. Helens.
Thank you, sir. If I could take the Minister back to his report, he says, and I quote, "Without a significantly revised approach, achieving anything close to the target of a 15% reduction in peak time travel will be impossible," end quote. And I welcome the Minister's willingness to work with the various departments responsible. But will he also confirm that the suggestions in the report that we need to put up parking charges to tackle congestion would be extremely unfair, given that half of those driving into town every day are not going to public car parks at all, but are accessing private non-residential parking? And will he undertake to work with the Treasury Minister to see what can be done to levy some kind of charge on these car parks, which are not helping the shopper at all? They're helping the commuter who does not need to worry about parking charges going up. Thank you, sir.
Sir, the Constable will know when I have in the past attended with him areas like the Haverday Par Working Group, Users Group and others similar. Parking is always an issue at top of people's agenda, whether you live in town, when you come into town. Everybody is concerned about parking. It's recently come to my attention that the standards that we apply to parking on planning applications are not up to scratch, and we need to do more. We're working on that at the moment. And yes, I take on board the Constable's suggestion. We need to look at parking, continue to need to look at parking in St Helier as a way of helping to solve the congestion problem. But certainly I would point out to the Constable that maybe one of the areas we could look at is school buses. You don't need to be an expert to find out that the time it takes you to get into town in a car in the school holidays is considerably easier than it is when schools are in. So there is work to do in all parts of parking and traffic, and school buses could be one solution.
Well, that brings us to question 14. That Deputy Taddy will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy Taddy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise members of the average time taken for redeterminations and appeals against decisions made by the Department to be completed? And will she state what is considered to be a reasonable time for redeterminations and appeals to be addressed?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Most areas of benefit legislation include a two-stage review process. The claimant can request a review, known as a redetermination, normally up to 21 days after receiving the department's decision. In many cases, a simple phone conversation will resolve the issue and no further action is needed. In other cases, a different officer will examine the original decision and make a written decision which is sent to the claimant. If the claimant remains dissatisfied, they can ask for the decision to be referred to an independent tribunal. They have 14 days to make this request. The department processes tens of thousands of claims a year, but only a tiny fraction need resolution at this level. For example, in 2015, the department received just 40 formal appeals. The time that is taken to process redeterminations and appeals varies significantly, depending on the complexity involved in revisiting the decision. For example, job-seeking sanctions are undertaken within a very short timescale. The claimant has 7 days, rather than 21, to request a review, and the first stage review is normally completed by the department in less than 5 working days. At the other end of the scale, some complex medical reviews can take several months to complete, as the claimant is given the opportunity to submit expert evidence at each stage of the process, once the original request for review has been lodged. Thank you.
So the Minister will be aware, as I am, of a 63-year-old man who I believe was incorrectly sanctioned from his job. His family are now facing financial hardship in very real terms. As redetermination request was submitted on the 6th of July, and that's already over 2.5 months now, this couple, in fact, are still waiting for that redetermination to take place, and that's before we even get into an appeal. Does the Minister think this is acceptable? Is this happening a lot in her department, and is there perhaps a lot of pressure when it comes to the variety of redeterminations and appeals that are taking place in her department?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. As the Deputy would expect, I can't possibly give a comment on an individual case, and it's very difficult to answer his question without doing that. So I've given an overall description of the various ways of determining cases, and in the extreme, then a tribunal. Giving up work is, the principle is absolutely correct that an individual should not leave a paid job in favour of claiming benefits. I think everybody would agree. And the incidents of this case, I can't discuss any further.
So
It's
me. He's getting confused, sir. Will the Minister, she said that appeals for second determinations on sanctions issues take a relatively short time. Will she produce for members an average of how long a redetermination and a tribunal appeal takes for this particular type of the sanction?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I think I've already mentioned it's 21 working days for appeals to the Social Security Tribunal and Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal, and 28 working days for appeals to the Social Security Medical Appeal Tribunal. The process of appealing to an external tribunal is managed by the Judicial Greffe and is independent of the department.
Does the Minister have the figures which indicate how long it takes for the department to take a second view or a tribunal on an issue of sanctions? Does she have those figures? If not, will she liaise with the Judicial Greffe and acquire them and distribute them to members?
So there is no average time taken to see tribunals or, for that matter, a redetermination. As I said in my opening remarks, if it's a medical situation, the evidence has to be produced by the claimant and the medical practitioner, which is obviously a lot more time-consuming than any other way of producing evidence. So it's all very there is no average time frame which the Deputy is asking for.
Final supplementary, Deputy Tallier.
Thank you, sir. We have a strange system with sanctions in particular where you're presumed guilty until you can prove that you're innocent, and in that time it may take a very long time, with you having been financially penalised, losing your benefit if you can finally prove your innocence, if you like. Does the Minister agree that the principle of justice delayed is justice denied is salient in this case, and will she undertake, both in this case, if there is something going wrong, and more generally, to make sure that redeterminations and appeals are done as quickly and as smoothly as possible so that all involved can actually have a fair and reasonable outcome?
Minister.
Of course, sir, and the case to which the Deputy refers is being dealt with by the Department as we speak, and there is no reason why the Department would delay in any way to get something realised or redetermined, or to the satisfaction, if possible, to the claimant. And if the advice that we give is disputed and then the claimant can come through with evidence to support the case, then we would remove the claim, remove the problem of his claim.
Very well. That brings questions with notice to an end. We now come to questions to ministers without notice. The first question period is to the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. Deputy Labby.
Thank you, sir. Returning to the subject of Condor ferries, what is the latest position on assuring reliable sailings? Guernsey has seen something of a dramatic downturn in sea transport figures. Could the Minister advise how Jersey's sea passenger arrivals have been affected?
Thank you, sir. The position is exactly the same as last time I reported to the Assembly, insofar as we have seen significant improvements with Condor this year, but there is still some way to go. The Comprehensive Service report is due out imminently, and I hope that will answer a lot of questions and set Condor in a new course for a success. The Deputy also does know that sea passenger arrivals are significantly down in all of the Channel Islands, which is a concern. Having said that, I'm pleased to announce that air arrivals are up significantly, which more than compensate for the sea arrival figures.
So how ongoing are discussions with our Guernsey counterparts in this area, and how radical is the thinking? Have the islands, both islands, considered commissioning an all-weather vessel and sticking it on the Weymouth route, for example?
The short answer to that question is no, sir, nor would I ever consider asking the states of Jersey to consider investing in shipping to that magnitude. Condor and myself and my counterpart in Guernsey, the President of the Economic Development Committee, are in regular contact. We have regular discussions. We meet more than monthly with Condor. And I can say we are having some productive and encouraging talks about how Condor might improve their fleet moving forward. But again, we have to wait for the result of the Comprehensive Service Review and take it from there, sir. But I am hopeful that we will find a solution, and I very much hope that Condor will continue to value their business enough in the Channel Islands to invest in improving the fleet.
Deputy Mezey.
Thank you, sir. It's well known that you can support economic development by introducing measures to increase people's disposable income, money which they will then go and spend in the local economy, which can help with economic growth. Would this minister agree, however, that arguing to improve the disposable income of states members the day before this assembly is due to discuss drastically reducing the disposable income of teachers and savage cuts to our public services is an insensitive thing to argue?
What I do wish, sir, is the Deputy would sometimes read the article and not just the headline. He's pretty good at making headlines, but he doesn't often go further than that. I have not said, sir, for the record, I have not called for anything. In response to an interview with the JP last week, which I thought I was doing for an upcoming Saturday interview, I was asked my opinion on states members' pay. And if the Deputy and other members are interested in my opinion, then they should read the article in full, which is very accurately written. And for the record, I said that some members' pay, in my opinion, should be reduced and some should be increased, but that's a debate for another day. I had no input whatsoever, sir, to the JP deciding to publish that on the eve of the debate.
Deputy Taddy.
Thanks, sir. Would the Minister be able to clarify... Thank you. Would the Minister be able to clarify the legal basis on which Swissport got temporary staff to come over to Jersey in order to deal with their contingency for the strike which was ongoing at the airport on the 24th of September, just this month?
No, sir, I'm afraid I can't because I personally haven't been involved in that, but I will consult with the relevant department, which I think should be Chief Ministers, if I understand the question correctly. In relation to licences, he was asking, sir?
There was a suggestion by a union representative that questioning the legal basis on which staff would be brought over temporarily. The Minister will obviously know that, generally speaking, in Jersey there's a 5-year licence required, and it would be interesting to know on what basis the temporary staff came in to replace those who were striking on that day.
As I understand it, sir, you don't need a licence for a day, and I'm pleased to say minimal disruption was caused by the strike, and the airport remained open.
Well, Deputy Southern.
Yes, and I must ask the Minister for Economic Development how he considers my rate of pay to be. Should I be paid more or less?
Well, I don't allow that question, Deputy, on the basis that, in fact, this is not a question. This is a question for the Minister for Economic Development, as the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture, and not as a member expressing a view on a political matter not within his remit. So, but I don't allow that. Any other questions for this Minister? Yes, Deputy Southern.
My original question, right, in the light of predictions for zero job growth and zero economic growth in the years 2017 to 19, what initiatives and what initiatives does the Minister have under consideration to boost and promote job growth and economic growth in the island?
Firstly, sir, I don't agree that it's we're going to see a zero growth. It's plateaued and it's maintaining at a much better level than we've seen for a number of years. And my department will continue with the policy and strategy that we've engaged with, working closely with Chief Minister's Department and the Treasury to make sure confidence is returning to all business sectors across the economy, and we continue to create new jobs and employment and career opportunities across all sectors of the economy.
Does the Minister agree or not with the conclusions of the FPP, which I understand said zero economic growth and zero job growth? And he's just blithely said he's going to grow some jobs. Well, FPP say it's going to be very difficult.
Yes, it is going to be difficult, and that's why we're going to work very, very hard to make sure we continue to create jobs and employment opportunities. I can't argue with the logic and the opinions of the FPP. I hold them and the views in the highest regards, as do most of my colleagues here in the States Assembly. But to reiterate, yes, to answer your question, I do agree with their forecasts. But I also think, sir, that with the good work that a number of States departments are doing, we're going to buck the trend they predict, sir.
Deputy Angelis.
Thanks, sir. I wonder if the Minister could update us on the success or not of the aircraft registry. How many new aircraft have been registered in Jersey, and what does he feel extra could be done to encourage the registry to be the success that I know he would like it to be?
Thank you, sir. I thank the Deputy for that question. And the Deputy and I do discuss the aircraft registry. And I think we both think it has great potential. And I think we have to play a bit of a long game with it. I'll have to double check how many aircraft have been registered. I think it's only 2 at present. But having said that, at the beginning of Air Display Week, there was an exhibition at the airport of private aircrafts with some of the world's leading suppliers exhibiting, all of which, sir, the senior executives, all of which felt that Jersey had significant potential for developing this area, and were reporting sales of aircraft worth tens of millions of pounds into the Jersey economy. So there's some way to go, but there's great potential. I will continue to discuss opportunities with Deputy Lewis.
Sir, I wonder if the Minister could say whether he feels that Jersey is a competitive jurisdiction for the registry of aircraft, as obviously it's a very competitive market, and to date there are very few registered. Is it because we're not competitive, or are there other reasons?
I think we are competitive, sir, but we're late into the game. There are a lot of other very established aircraft registries around the world that we have to compete with, and I think we're going to start to do that, and we're going to do it sooner rather than later. But there are some areas, I think, that could make us more competitive, and perhaps some opportunities to work with others more closely.
Constable Gouville.
Thank you, sir. The Minister's Department receives the accounts of all farms receiving support. Does his department ever investigate the effects on profitability of various levels of the minimum wage?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question, but I will find out and get back to the Constable.
Senator Fergus.
Thank you, sir. Visit Jersey is primarily involved with promotion of the island. Would the Minister like to give us a summary of the work that his department does with planning in order to improve tourism facilities and destinations?
Minister.
If we go back a number of years, before I was Minister for Economic Development, Senator may recall that a lot of work was done on behalf of tourism from a planning point of view to remove, for example, the prime site policy, which locked tourism venues into the sector for years and years and years without giving them the opportunity to realise their potential and plan for the future. sir. And I think the industry has benefited tremendously from that policy being changed, as we've seen hundreds of millions of pounds of new investment in new hotels in the last decade. I haven't worked with the Planning Minister directly on any new policies recently, but we're always very mindful of opportunities that lie ahead. And I'd also point out, sir, that we are due to see a new hotel open in St Helier, part of a global chain, sir, in 2017.
But supplementary, sir, has the Minister actually worked with the planning department and the planning officers in order to ensure that tourism destinations remain tourism destinations and aren't ruined?
If the Senator is asking if I'm going to interfere with planning and suggest that they refuse tourism accommodation, any planning permissions to do anything else than be a hotel, then the answer to that is no, sir. I couldn't think of anything more damaging for the industry.
Deputy Taddy.
So the Minister talked about creating jobs and admitted that it's going to be very difficult to create jobs in the current economic climate, as suggested by the panel that deals with that issue. Does the Minister perhaps, would the Minister be able to tell us what jobs are being cut in his department and how many?
I think the Economic Development Department, or Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture, as it's now known, has been a leader in many of the state's departments in achieving reductions in FTEs. If you remove the impact of sport and culture coming into the department, we have approximately, like for like, halved our headcount, halved the number of FTEs, which is no mean feat when you consider the amount of work that economic development is doing. I won't go through it all now, sir, but there are dozens and dozens of areas that we are responsible for direct delivery. We are responsible for a number of grant-funded organisations and over almost 80 areas of legislation, sir. But
So
the
may I have a
question is we have halved our headcount, sir, from in the 30s down to just below 20 point something.
I'm sorry, there's only time now for one more question, really, so I think I must move to the next person who came on my list, which is the Conotable of St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. From a cultural perspective, how is the Minister's department involved with the promotion and the retention of Gerrier as a living language?
That is a topic that's been fairly high on our agenda almost since we took over the responsibility. It's an area managed by Deputy Norton, and I'm pleased to say that we have not only agreed to fund a full-time teacher for the teaching of Gerrier, but working with the Chief Minister's Department, we're going to fund two in the short term. We all think at our department that the retention of Gerrier is absolutely vital. And whilst we're increasing the number of teachers, there are other projects we're looking forward to putting in place with the Chief Minister's Department, including the digital sector, just for that very purpose. But I can assure the Constable and other members of the Assembly, sir, that we think it's absolutely important, more than important, it's vital, sir, that we retain Gerrier for future generations.
That brings the period for questions allocated to this Minister to an end, and that brings us on to the next question period, which is for the Minister for Housing. Deputy Taddy.
So the Minister will be aware, hopefully, of the scrutiny report that came out, which has already been mentioned today from the panel dealing with social services, which found that actually it's housing costs in Jersey which are crippling low-income families. Does the Minister accept that in the absence of, that there is an absence of affordable housing in Jersey, and because we won't be able to build it quick enough to meet the demand that there is out there already, that we need some desperate action to be taken when it comes to rents in particular to be made affordable? If she does, what steps does she have that she'll be taking to make this happen, if any?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Regarding the Health and Social Services Scrutiny Panel report, I, like the Minister of Social Security, is looking at the recommendations and will respond accordingly. One aspect, obviously, was the rate of affordable housing, sir, and yes, it is an issue and something that we need to look at. But the most important thing to help that is to build and to keep the supply going, sir. We know that with through income support that people do get the housing component support as and when they need it, sir. But yes, it is the scrutiny of a panel report is something that I will be looking at and responding in due course.
So, supplementary, the Minister must accept, like anybody living in the real world, that we simply cannot build enough new housing quickly enough to deal with the current population, let alone the highly increased population that the Council of Ministers want to bring to the island. So on that basis, will the Minister consider perhaps a moderated rent control system whereby rent control is applied across the board at the rate which is set by Social Security, but with the ability for landlords to become exempt from rent control if they can prove that their property is in such a condition that it merits attracting a higher rent? Would that not be something which should be considered given the urgent housing crisis and rental crisis that we have currently in the island?
Sir, you talked about urgent rental crisis, and there is rental prices are high, sir. But with that income support, that support is there necessary for people and families who have difficulties. So I think the Deputy Tadja always asks me the question about rent controls, and I'm sorry, sir, I shall be giving him the same answer as I've given him in the past. My position is not to regulate private sector rents. The economic unit undertook a review back last year, and they published that report back in 2015, because the evidence shows that it has knock-on effects. That it could limit the incentive for private landlords to build, and that's the last thing that we want, because it reduces the availability of rental accommodation. Therefore, it will push up the prices, and so therefore, it's the people that you are trying to help have more of a problem if the rents are increased, because there's no supply. So the answer, sir, as it was previously, is not at this moment, sir. No.
Deputy Hilton.
Thank you, sir. What difficulties, if any, does the Minister believe exist in her quest to deliver the 1,000 social housing units over the period of the Medium-Term Financial Plan 2016 to 2019?
So that's a very big question. We know that there are 1,000 approximately houses that need to be built, and which were approved in the Island Plan back in 3 years ago, which goes up to 2020. The major sites are like Collette's, the low-rise there, Summery Nurseries, Summerland, and Court Cottage Gardens, to name but a few. So that work is done. I suppose the main difficulty is time that it actually takes to especially the state's own land. The property holdings works very efficiently with Andium, who've got most of those properties to hand over there. But that does take time, and by the time they've consulted the area and put plans in, and it goes to the planning panel, sir, and then there's a third-party appeal. That all adds time, and unfortunately, it's just one of those things, sir. So time is the most important. I think the time that it actually does take. Because now, with housing, we have now got the bond, the £250 million bond, so Andium can now get on and build, where before they couldn't, because they didn't have any money or because it was lower on the capital priorities. So there has been an inconsistency inconsistency of supply. So when we begin to build, and this, I think Anne Court will hopefully come
Minister,
to planning. Sorry, sir.
I appreciate it was a very wide question, but
Supplementary, sir.
yes, supplementary.
The Minister alluded to...
Keep it going.
The Minister alluded to the delays experienced particularly on state-owned sites. Does she feel that possibly if the resources increased in property holdings, these sites would actually be delivered a little bit more quickly?
So it's not the case of resources to deliver them quickly. It's just the hurdles that it has to go through, and quite right, sir, because this is state-owned, this is public land. So all that does take time, and to go through the plans and to tender, it does take time. And property holdings do a good job and work extremely well with Andium. But it's also consistency of supply. That once you start building, it needs to be consistent, not up and down like a yo-yo.
Deputy Lavin.
Has the Minister's Department collected any data or research to support the widely held view that a resurgent buy-to-let market has property speculators and developers and investors hampering the chances of local families or young couples or first-time buyers getting on the housing ladder?
Thank you, sir. I found out this is a very complex area. And to answer the first part very quickly, no data is recorded because people, whether they buy share transfer or go to court, do not say what they're going to buy, what they're going to use the house for, whether they're going to live in it or whether they're going to let it out for buy to rent. But no company can buy a property without exception with the population office. But if a developer wants to sell some properties by share transfer, then companies can purchase that. Work was done back in 2000, I understand, when there was really pressure in house prices, but that time no evidence showed that a lot of especially out of the island companies were purchasing properties to buy to let, and anecdotal evidence still shows that estate agents saying that there is an increase in buy to let, but not with companies. It is kind of private people, residents of Jersey, who are buying them to let. And you can understand that, sir, because with the interest rate as it is...
Once again, Minister, I'm
sorry.
ask you to bring them.
With interest rates as it is, sir, it's a good investment.
Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. And can I have a short answer to this one? One of the markers for housing or affordability is the ratio between the average house price and the average wage. Does the Minister have an up-to-date 2016 figure for that ratio? And can she say whether it is going down or going up?
Minister.
So I haven't got that figure with me, sir, so it's a very short answer. But I'm sure I will provide the Deputy with the answer, sir. Oh, yeah, certainly, sir.
Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister agree with me that landlords should be required to install fire alarms in their rented properties and, where appropriate, carbon monoxide alarms? And if so, when will she bring this change forward, please?
Sir, I thank the Deputy for her question. That's a very good question. So I would have thought that they would have to do that, but I will check. I think something perhaps the fire service do. Well, I know the fire service do a lot of promotion on that, and also so through Rent Safe, which is a new scheme started by the Environment Department. I shall have a look too if that's one of the criteria that to be accredited landlord that it fits in there.
supplementary side. So just to confirm, the Minister does agree that that should be a requirement, and if it isn't already, she will ensure that it's changed so it is a requirement.
I would have thought it should be private, but I will look into it and come back to her.
Deputy Taddy?
Thank you. Given the fact that there is no longer a housing department and seemingly the only thing we can do about the affordability and supply of houses is leave it to the free market or to the whims of the planning regulations, does the Minister perhaps think now is the time to get rid of the position of Housing Minister in this Assembly?
Minister?
Sir, I feel quite hurt this afternoon. Someone wants to get rid of me, but there you go. Can rise above that, sir. I think it was this Assembly that decided that it still wanted a housing minister in the housing transformation proposition that came 2 years ago, sir. It does provide that very important link because housing is important. It is important for every single resident here in Jersey. And it's now a social policy group, also, doing housing policy, which has perhaps been kind of put to one side for many years because it had looking after the housing portfolio. So, but I'm at the whim of this Assembly, sir.
So does the Minister not agree that actually everything to do with minimum standards is being pushed to the Health Department, Environmental Health? We have a strategic housing unit which comes under the Chief Minister's department, and it seems that time after time the Minister stands up in this Assembly being reluctant to do anything meaningful to improve the lives of real people in the island who are actually facing hardship, substandard accommodation, very high rents, not to mention all the other difficulties that are associated with living on a relative low income in Jersey. Is it not time for the actual Minister to be more proactive in her stance and actually deliver on what a housing minister should be doing?
Sir, I don't know where Deputy Taddy has been over the last months. We've done a housing strategy, sir, which is back last year. The 4 main points were affordability, communities, to name but 2. We are delivering. We are a strategic housing unit, sir, of policy making to try and get the fact of getting affordable rents and to be in place to actually get out there and encourage rents to try and lower rents, but to build. That's the most important thing: is supply of housing, and working with it is joined up government, which I'm sure is what this Assembly would like to see. Work very closely with the Environment Minister and the Minister of DFI, as well as with Senator Whittier. So housing has effect of every single, whether it's with health, to maintain the health and well-being of somebody, or to actually go and build. So it has a very important point right in the heart, sir.
Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Following the gradual introduction for new tenants of the 90% of the private sector rent in Andium homes, does the Minister know what proportion or number of tenancies are now being charged the 90% rate?
Yes, sir, I do. It's 23% of Andium tenants pay the 90% rents. But you've got to think, sir, the reason behind the 90%. When this House debated the strategic housing transformation and the investment to put in, to build more houses, to bring those units of accommodation, which were well below standard, sir, as a previous housing minister would say, he wouldn't let his mother live in them. I wouldn't let my mother live in one of those. They were terrible, and slowly Andium are doing a good job to refurbish them and bring them up to decent home standards, which they will hopefully have 100% by the year 2020, and that's a major achievement. But it's got to be paid for, sir, and that's where the 90% rents come into, sir, and that was also looked through with the scrutiny panel at that time.
That brings the question time available for this Minister to an end. There is nothing under J and K, and accordingly, I think in accordance with the decision taken by the Assembly at last occasion, the States now stands adjourned until 9:30 tomorrow morning.